I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. I guess I'll just sit here and wait. I know he's going to show up, so I can fulfill my obligations of... there you are. I knew it. You little idiot. Go on. Yeah, take a seat. I was just talking about how I'm going to fulfill my obligations of recording crap while I'm away in another country. Why? To make you happy. So if I record this... How does that work? I think I ruined my own time with this. I'm recording this ahead of time so you can come here and listen. Even though you're here listening right now. Whatever, the farce is dead. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books, short stories. This week, we're going to read, because Christmas is coming up, we're going to read Christmas Eve at Swamp's End by Norman Duncan. And if everything goes as planned, by the time you're hearing this, I will be in the Black Forest at their Christmas markets, which looks adorable, and I'm going to buy a cuckoo clock at a store. And I'm going to pick out the finest cuckoo clock. And then they'll say, oui, monsieur, you will find this cuckoo clock the finest. And I'll say, thank you, German. I would like this sent to my home in Minnesota. They'll say, oh, Minnesota, oui. And then they'll send it to me. And that's going to be my whole life. Why don't we learn about the author of this book, Christmas Eve at Swamp's End by Norman Duncan, that we're going to be reading today, so we can have that Christmas spirit happening while I'm buying a cuckoo clock. Norman Duncan, born July 2nd, 1871, died October 8th, 1916. He was a writer, journalist, and educator. It's kind of it. Not really much out there about him. From 1897 to 1901, Duncan was a staff of the New York Evening Post. This is boring. After 1900, he lived mainly in the United States. Boring. 1902, Duncan was appointed professor of rhetoric at Washington and Jefferson College. I don't care. He published over 20 books, including stories, novels, and travel journalism, and I'm not going to list those off. Not everyone gets a giant Wikipedia page, and apparently Norman Duncan isn't one of them. What, here's some fun facts? Well, there are none, because there's no information on this guy out there. So I went to grunge.com, like I always do, and I pulled up this fun fact. Norman Mailer nearly murdered his wife. Norman Mailer excelled at fiction. He wrote The Naked and the Dead, and nonfiction, The Executioner's Song, alike. But he failed at being a decent human being. For all his talent with a typewriter, Mailer was a genuinely horrible person. If you need proof, then just ask his daughter Elizabeth, who told the New York Times that her mother, artist Adele Mailer, referred to him after his death as a monster. Oh, why would she say something so terrible about the father of her children? Maybe because Mailer almost stabbed her to death. As it turns out, Mailer was super sensitive when it came to his writing, and when Adele claimed that he wasn't as good as writer Dostoevsky, are you kidding? He was mad because he's being put against... All right, fine. He grabbed the penknife and went on the attack, stabbing her in the stomach and back. Oh, well, with that, turns out Jack Henry Abbott was a murderer that he thought was a great writer, so he decided to get him out of prison, and immediately Jack Henry Abbott killed someone. And Mailer's like, cherchez la femme. Well, with that, why don't we go downstairs to the library and read this book? You hear all that? That's me decorating for Christmas. In the last episode, I said I had a half-built tree, and you didn't know it was going to go so far as to have new Christmassy music for the next couple episodes for this glorious Christian month. Well, why don't we dive in? You've got yourself all settled, and you can see that I've left a plate of cookies and a little glass of milk, which is not the way to pronounce that, but I think it makes it sound even more disgusting than milk really is when you say milk. Don't eat them. They're for Santa. Nah, go ahead and eat them. It's fine. They won't make you have diarrhea or anything, I promise. Apparently this is in multiple parts, and the first of the 5 short stories in this is The Wistful Heart. It was long afternoon in the far, big, white Northwest. Day was on the wing. Christmas Eve splendidly impended. Thank God for unspoiled childish faith and joys of children everywhere. Christmas Eve was fairly within view and welcoming hail, at last, in the thickening eastern shadows. Long day at its close. Day in the perturbation of blessed unselfishness. Day with its tasks of love, not half accomplished, and day near done. Bedtime coming round the world on the jump. 9 o'clock leaping from longitude to longitude. It says longitude to longitude. Leaping from... It's supposed to be... All right. Okay, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Why am I not following anything that's happening in the story so far? I've had a White Claw. Night, impatient and determined, chasing all the children of the world into drowsy expectation to sleep, making a clean sweep of them. Everyone, with their soft, wide broom of dusk. 9 o'clock, shoo, off you go. Tomorrow's on the way, soon, oh, soon. Tomorrow's here when you fall asleep. Said 'em already, have you? Not another word from either of you. Not a whisper, you grinning rascals. Cuddle down, huh? You get the people of Christ's heart and leading. Snuggle close, now closer yet, my children, that your arms may grow used to this loving. Another kiss for mother? Blessed ones. 1 billion more for nights and mornings, for all day long of all the years, waiting here on mother's lips. Oh, now to sleep. Christmas is tomorrow. Hush. Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow. Go to sleep, go to sleep. What the hell am I reading? And upon the flying heels of night, but still far overseas from the blustering white Northwest, where Patty Batch was waiting at swamps ends in the woods. Oh, finally, we're getting to the point. The new day, with jolly countenance, broad, rosy, and delighted, was somewhere approaching in a gale of childish laughter, blindly calling in its westward sweep to all Christian children to awaken to their particular and eternal joy. Ugh. So I guess that's just basically saying night came and everyone went to sleep. But we at least got to Patty Batch waiting at Swamp's End. All right. It was Christmas weather in the big woods, a Christmas temperature like frozen steel. 30 below in the clearing of Swamp's End, and a rollicking wind careering over the pines and the swirling dust of snow in the metallic air. A cold, crisp, cackling world. A Christmas land, too. A vast expanse of Christmas colour with a U, from the Canadian line to the big river. Great, grave, green pines, white earth, and blood-red sunset. Oh, the low, long cabins of the lumber camps were smothered in snow. They were fringed with pendant ice and eaves, and banked high with drifts, and all window-frosted. The trails were thigh-deep and drifty. The pines, their great fall eminent now, flaunted long black arms in the gale. Oh, they creaked, they swished, they droned, and they crackled with frost. No, it was coming on dusk. And the deeper reaches of the forest were already dark. Horses, teamsters, sawyers, road monkeys, axemen, swampers, punk hunters, and all floundered from the bush with white, dry snow, icicled and frosted like a Christmas cake, to the roaring bunkhouse fires, to a voracious employment at the cook's long tables, to an expanding festival of jollity. Town? Sure. Swamp's End for Christmas. The lights and companionship of the bedraggled shanty lumber town and the clearing of the Swamp's End. Swamp's End for gingerbread Jenkins. Swamp's End for Billy the Beast. Swamp's End and the roaring hilarity thereof. For man and boy, straw boss and cookie of the lumberjacks. Presently the dim trails from the cant hook cutting, from the Bottle River camps, from Snook's Landing and the Yellowtail Works, poured the boys into town. A lusty, hilarious crew, like loosed schoolboys on a lark, and giving over now to the only distractions it seemed, and John Fairmeadow maintained it, which the great world provided in the forest. I feel like we have not moved forward at all in whatever this story is supposed to be. Just describing shit for like 5 pages. Now we're back to Patty Batch. Patty Batch might have been aware of this. The log shack was on the edge of town. Had not the window panes been coated thick with Christmas frost? Oh, she might have heard rough laughter passing by. The Bottle River Trail ran right past the door. It had not the big Christmas wind snored in the stove and fearsomely rattled the door and shaken the cabin and swept, howling on. Oh, but she never in the world would have attended. Not in that emergency. She would not, for anything, have peeped out of the windows in perfectly proper curiosity and to watch the Bottle River Jacks flounder into town. Not she. Oh, Patty Batch was busy. Patty Batch was so desperately employed that her swift little fingers demanded all the attention of the most alert, the brightest, the most bewitching gray eyes in the whole wide world could bestow upon anything whatsoever. Christmas Eve, you see. Day done. I still don't really know what's going on. I guess Patty Batch is doing something. Something of soft fawn skin engaged her, it seemed, with white patches matched and arranged with marvelous exactitude. Something made for warmth in the wind. Something of small fashion, but long and indubitably capricious. Oh, something with a hood. A little cloak, possibly. Oh, I don't know. Oh, but I'm sure it could envelop. Oh, that little boil or roast. It could fairly smother a baby. It was lined with golden brown crackling silk, which Patty Batch's mother had left in her trunk upon her last departure. Poor woman, from the sordid world of Swamp's End to regions which were now becoming Patty Batch's loving vision of places of light. I guess she's dead. And then it was upon this treasured cloth that Patty Batch's flashing needle was working like mad in the lamplight, a Christmas sacrifice. It was labor of love and the gift of treasure. Patty Batch was lovely. Everyone knew it. Oh, there's no denying it. Grief had not left her wan and apathetic. Oh, she had been, quote, a little man. Oh, she had been so much of a little man that she was now much more a little woman than ever she had been before. In respect to her bewitching endearments, there was no mincing matters at all. It would shame a man to hem and haw and qualify. She was adorable. Beauty of youth and heart of tenderness, a quaint little womanly child of 17, gowned now in a black dress, long-skirted to be sure, of her mother's old-fashioned wear. Gray eyes wide, dark-lashed, sun-sparkling and shadowy, the willful dark hair, a sweetly tilted little nose, a boyish, masterful way, coquettish twinkles, or dimples in the most perilous places, rosy cheeks, a tender little figure, an aristocratic toss to her head. Why, indeed, the catalog of her charms had no end to it. Courage to boot. Wow. Too, as though youth and loveliness were not sufficient endowment. So we are spending page after page just describing Patty Batch. She's working on something for a baby, and she's real pretty. It's taken pages to get here. What the hell am I reading? An uncompromising honesty with herself and all the world. She took in washing from the camps. Now there was nothing else to do. With Gray Billy Batch lost in the rattle water, and now decently stowed away by the Reverend John. How many people are dying around this person? It was lonely in Gray Billy Batch's cabin. Now, of course, it was something almost intolerably so, and ghostly too, with echoes of long-past footsteps and memories of soft, motherly words. Patty Batch, however, a practical little person, knew in her own mind, you must be informed, exactly how to still the haunting echoes and transform the memories into blessed companions of her busy, gentle solitude. But she was not as yet managed to the solution. I'm dying. Patty Batch wanted a baby. Companionship, of course, would be a mere byproduct of a baby's presence in the cabin. The real wealth and advantage would be a glowing satisfaction in the baby. At any rate, Patty Batch wanted one. Oh, she always had, and she simply couldn't help it. Babies, however, were not numerous at Swamp's End. In point of fact, there was only one, a perfectly adorable enfant, and it must be understood, a suitable child and worthy in every respect of being heartily desired by any woman, which unhappily belonged to the bartender who lived with Pale Peter of the Red Elephant Saloon. No use asking for that baby, not outright. Oh, it can be borrowed, however. Patty Batch had borrowed it. Oh, she had borrowed it frequently, of late, and had mysteriously measured with a calculating eye, and had estimated, and scowled in doubt, and scratched her head, and pursed her little sweet lips, and had secretly fanned the baby from chin to toe and across the back with an industriously inquiring thumb and little finger. But a borrowed baby, it seems, is no use whatsoever. The satisfaction is said to be temporary, nothing more, and to leave a sense of vacant arms and the stinging aggravation of envy. So what Patty Batch wanted was a baby to keep. A baby she could call her own and cherish against meddling. A baby that should be so rosy and fat, and curly, so neat and white, so scrubbed and highly polished from crown to toenails that every mother in the land beholding would promptly expire on the spot of amazement, incredulously and from sheer jealousy. Now there are babies at elegant corners, a frowsy, listless mud hole in the woods nearby. They were all possessed by one mother, too. Last comer had appeared in the fall of the year, and Patty Batch, when the great news had come down to Swamp's Head, had instantly taken the trail for elegant corners. Got another, she said flatly to the wretched Mrs. Limp. Mrs. Limp sighed and rolled her eyes as though, God save us, the ultimate misfortune had fallen upon her. Now, number 8, she groaned. Don't you like it? Patty demanded hopefully. Mrs. Limp was so deeply submerged in tears that she failed to commit herself. You don't like it, eh? Patty pursued, hope immediately abounding. Mrs. Limp sniffed. Well, said Patty, her little heart all in a flutter. She was afflicted, too, with an adorable lisp and excitement. I suppose I ought to be sorry. What the hell am I reading? Mrs. Limp seemed dolefully to agree. Patty Batch then came straight to the point. Well, I've been thaving up, she said, and I've been hard at it for more than 7 months. This is weird. Okay, so she's supposed to be the most beautiful woman on earth, and she's got a lisp. Mrs. Limp lifted her blue eyelids. Yep, said Patty briskly, and I got 23 right here in my skirt. Where's that baby? I hate that I'm doing the lisp. Do I have a choice? The baby was fetched and deposited in her arms. Boy or girl? Patty inquired with business-like precision. Boy, Mrs. Limp sighed. So she's just buying a baby. Boy, Mrs. Limp sighed. Thank God. Patty Batch was vastly disappointed. She had fancied a girl. That was a shock indeed to her ardor. It was so much of a shocking disappointment that Patty Batch might have easily had a wept. A boy, oh shoot. But still, she reflected, considering the scarcity. A boy. This boy, in fact, cleaned up. Patty Batch was all the time running the mottled infant over with sharply appraising eyes. Yes, the child had possibilities, unquestionably so, which soap and water might astonishingly improve, and, in fine, this little boy might... Mrs. Limp, God, I hate this, said Patty, looking that lady straight in the eye. I'll give you $25 for thirth here, baby. By George, I will. The astonished mother jumped out of her chair, and her lassitude in the same instant. Not another cent, Patty craftily declared. Here, take your baby. Mrs. Limp did not quite take the baby. That would be but a pale indication of the speed, directness, and outraged determination which she had acted. She snatched the baby away with the precision of a brisk woodpecker after an escaping worm, and she hugged it until it howled for mercy, and she hushed it and crooned endearment and kissed the baby with such fervor and persistency that she saved its puckered face a washing. And then she turned, in a rage of indignation, and a storm of scorn, and a whirlwind of excretion, whatever, upon poor little Patty Batch. But Patty Batch was gone. Discreet little Patty Batch didn't need to be told. Her little feet were already pattering over the trail to Swamp's Head, and she was crying as she ran. But Patty Batch's wish for a baby went back to the very beginnings of things. Ask Gingerbread Jenkins. Gingerbread Jenkins knows. It was Gingerbread Jenkins who had found her long ago. Patty was little more than a baby herself, and then on the Bottle River Trail, and to Gingerbread Jenkins' astonishment, the child was lugging a gun into the woods. Hey, where are you going? Said Gingerbread Jenkins. Gunning, eh? What for? Just gunning. What you gunning for? None of your business. God, I hate I'm doing this. I feel like I'm going to regret this at the end. Like, my God, I should probably just delete this whole episode. Says saucy little Patty Batch. It is my business, Gingerbread Jenkins declared, and if you don't tell me what you're gunning for, I'll have you home in a jiffy. Well, says Patty, I'm gunning. What for? Stork, said Patty. Going to kill him? Gingerbread inquired. No, said Patty. What you gun for? I'm going to wing a couple, said Patty, and tame them. That was Patty Batch. Well, that's the end of that story. What the hell did I just read? She's going to buy a bait. I'm saving it for the end. All right, well, let's read the next story. A gift neglected. Well, there was only one Oh, the story keeps going. At Swamp's End, and that baby Patty Batch had adopted. In her mind, of course, quite on the sly. Nobody could adopt Pale Peter's bartender's baby in any other way. What the hell is going on? Oh, there's this Christmas has come again. Day gone beyond the last waving pines and a cold flush of red and gold. Christmas Eve here at last. Patty Batch's soft arms were still wanting. There were 1,000 kisses waiting on her tender lips for giving. Oh, her voice was all attuned to crooning the sweetest lullabies, but her heart was empty, save for a child of mist and wishes. Oh, it was dark now, but through the wind was still rollicking down. There was no snow blowing, and the shy stars were winking wide-eyed upon the busy world and all the myriad mysteries exhibited outside the doors. The gift of silk and fawn skin was finished. A perfect gift. Fashioned and accomplished with all the dexterity Patty Batch could employ. Oh, just as if, she had determined, if it's for my own baby, said Patty Batch. And after an agitated glance at the clock, quickly shooed and cloaked and hooded her sweet and blooming little self, and she listened with the lusty wind. And she put a most adorable little nose out of the doors in a sense of frosty weather, and she fluttered about the warm room in search of her mittens, and then she turned down the lamp, and chucked a log on the stove, and put on the dampers like a prudent householder, and having made quite sure that the door was latched, scampered off to town in the vast and twittering delight, with the nipping frost, with the roistering wind, and the fluffy snow, and the stars, the whole of God's clean world, and with herself too, and the blessed night of the year. She was exceedingly cautious, and she was not observed for the smallest flash. The thing was accomplished in mystery. Before she was aware of it, before her heart had eased its agitation, she was safely out again, and there, in plain view, on the table in Peter's living room, behind the saloon, lay the gift of silk and fawn skin for Pale Peter's bartender's baby. A Christmas mystery for them all to solve as best they could. Patty Batch peeked in the window. I wonder, she mused, if they'll ever in the world find out I've done it. Well, at least when she muses, she's not got a lisp. I'm just not reading the lisp anymore. I hate whatever the hell that is. Presently, Pale Peter's bartender came in. Oh, this was Charlie the Infidel. What are these names? Apparently there's a lot of context to this that I'm just not a part of when I'm reading this. Patty Batch rose on her cold little toes to better observe, and the frost exploded like pistol shots under her feet. She started, really, the little mite began to feel, and rather exquisitely, like a thief in the night. Now there's another explosion of frost as she crept nearer their peek hole in the glowing window. Whew! How deliciously mysterious it was. Nothing much, however, happened in Pale Peter's living room. To continue the thrill, Charlie the Infidel, in haste, chanced to brush the fawn-skin cloak on the table. He paused impatiently to pick it up and to fling it back on the heap, whereupon he pressed on to the bar. That wasn't very thrilling, you may be sure, but Charlie the Infidel, after all, was only a father, and Patty Batch, her courage not at all diminished, still waited in the frosty shadow, quite absorbed in expectation. Entered then Mrs. Bartender, a blonde, bored, novel-reading little lady in a splendid array. First of all, as Patty Batch observed, she yawned. Secondly, she yawned again. And was about to attempt an extraordinary feat of yawning a third time, and doubtless she would have achieved it when her washed blue eyes chanced to fall on the fawn-skin coat. with its lining of gold-brown silk shimmering in the lamplight. Oh, she picked it up, of course, in a bored sort of way, and she's positively on the verge of being interested in it. Oh, would you believe it? She attacked the third yawn. And the third yawn attacked her, and however it was, the yawn was accomplished with such dexterity, such certainty, and with such satisfaction to the lady that she quite forgot to look at the fawn-skin clothes again. Oh yeah, by George, she's tired, Patty Batch exclaimed to herself. Patty Batch sighed. She sighed twice. In point of fact, the second sigh, a great long one, discovered itself somewhere from very deep within. And then she went home disconsolate. That was literally that story. What the hell am I... This is supposed to be a fun Christmas episode. I've got the fancy music. I've decorated this goddamn place for you. And I'm getting a series of stories about a woman trying to buy a baby and then decides not to because she doesn't want a boy. I'll save it for the end of the show. Next, the making of a man. Soon after dark, John Fairmeadow, with a pack on his back, swung in from Jumping Jimmy Trail into the clearing of Swamp's End. What the hell are these names? Ceasing only then, his high, vibrant song and came striding down the huddled street. A big man, in rare humor with life, labor the night. A shadow, not John Fairmeadow's shadow, was a cautious pursuit, but of his dark, secret follower, John Fairmeadow was not aware. Near the cafe of Egyptian delights, he stumbled. The pursuing shadow gasped, and John Fairmeadow was so mightily excised for his pack that he ejaculated in a fashion most unministerial, but recovered his footing with a jerk, doubtless near turned pale with apprehension. But the pack was safe, the delicate contents, wherever they were, quite undisturbed, and John Fairmeadow gently adjusted the pack and stamped the snow from his soles as a precautionary measure, wiped the frost from his brows and eyelids, and in the same cautious wisdom, and still followed by the shadow, strode on, but with infinitely more care. At the Red Elephant, Pale Peter's glowing saloon, he turned in. The bar, as always in these days, gave the young apostle to those unrighteous parts a roaring welcome. It was become the fashion. Big, bubbling, rosy John Fairmeadow with the square jaw, the frank, admonitory tongue, the tender and persuasive heart, the competent, not unwilling fists, was welcome everywhere. From the Bottle River camps to the canned hook cutting into the bunkhouses of the Yellowtail, from beyond the divide to the lower waters of the Big River, in every saloon, bunkhouse, the superintendent's office, and cook's quarters of his wide green parish. Welcome to preach and pray, to bury, marry, gossip, and scold, and upon goodly provocation, to fight. Oh, this explains the fists. All the same righteous end. A clean man, a big, broad-shouldered, deep-chested, long-legged body. That's got to be a weird-looking guy. With a soul to match it, a glowing heart and a purpose lifted high. Now there's no mistaking the man, by men. John Fairmeadow, clad like a lumberjack, upright now at a full stature of him. We just wasted so much time just describing this person. At a full stature of man, body and soul, grinned like a delighted schoolboy. Oh, his fine head was thrown back in the pride of clean, sure strength. His broad face was in a rosy glow. His great chest still heaved with the labor of a stormy trail. Oh, his gray eyes flashed and twinkled in the soft light of Pale Peter's many lamps. Twinkled, ? M dash, and with merriment, ? M dash, in that long, stifling, roaring, smoky, fume-laden room. Oh, for a moment, then closed, a bit worn and melancholy too, but presently with reviving faith to urge them, opened wide and heartily, and began to twinkle again. The bar was in festive array. Christmas greens, red berries, ribbons, tissue paper, and gleaming tin foil. Flash of mirrors, bright color, branches of pine, cedar, and spruce from the big balsamic woods. It was crowded with lumberjacks and great fellows from the forest, big of body and passion, here gathered in celebration of the festival. John Fairmeadow, getting all at once, vigorously under the way, shouted, "Merry Christmas, boys!" and hello, Charlie, to the bartender, and he shook hands with Pale Peter, slapped Billy the Beast on the back, roared a greeting to Gingerbread Jenkins, exclaimed Merry Christmas with the speed and determination of a Gatling gun, inquired after Butcher Long's brood of kids in the East, and cried, hello, man, what's a good word from Yellowtail? How do you do? Glad to see you. And everywhere shook hands and clapped backs, carefully preserving, however, his own back from being clapped, devoutly ejaculated, God bless you, man. A Merry Christmas to you all and everyone, and eventually disappeared in the direction of Pale Peter's living quarters, leaving an uproar of genial delight behind him. John Fairmeadow's shadow, however, was unable to enter the bar of the Red Elephant and waited in seclusion across the windy street. Burp. Mrs. Bartender was still yawning as John Fairmeadow entered upon her ennui. When the big minister, exercising the softest sort of caution, slipped off his gigantic pack and deposited it with exquisitely delicate care and a face of deep concern on the table. She opened her faded eyes with interested curiosity, and as for the contents of the pack, there's no more concealing them. The article must now be declared and produced. It was a baby, of course. Oh, is she going to get a baby? Is it a girl this time? Of course it was a baby. The thing's been obviously all along. Oh, John Fairmeadow's foundling, left in the basket at the threshold of the temporary lodging room at Big Rapids. There's just free babies all over the place in this story. That very morning, first to John Fairmeadow's consternation, and then to his gleeful delight, for the baby itself, it was presently unswathed. It was quite beyond me to describe its excellencies and appearances and conduct. John Fairmeadow himself couldn't make the attempt to escape annihilation. It was a real and regular baby, however. One might suggest an adequate description that it was a plump baby. One might add that it was a lusty baby. Weird. It had hair. Weird. It had a pucker of amazement. Its eyes, 2 of them, were properly disposed upon its head. This is all weird. Its hands were of what are called rose-leaf dimensions. What? It had apparently a fixed habit of squirming. It had no teeth. No, babies don't. Evidently, a healthy baby. A baby that any mother might be proud of. Doubtless a marvel of infantile perfection in every respect. I should not venture to dispute such an assertion, nor would John Fairmeadow, nor any other bold gentleman of Swamp's End in elegant quarters, not in these latter days. Mrs. Bartender, of course, lifted her languid white hands in utter astonishment. There! John Fairmeadow exploded, looking round like a showman. What do you think of that, But Mr. Fairmeadow, the poor lady stammered, what have you brought it here for? Well, why not? John Fairmeadow demanded. Why not, indeed? It's perfectly polite. What am I to do with it? That isn't intoxicating my good woman, John Fairmeadow ran on, in great wrath, and it's never been in jail. But my dear Mr. Fairmeadow, do be sensible. What am I to do with it? Why, I should think, John Fairmeadow ventured, with his baby still sleeping like a brick, that you might first of all resuscitate it. Would a slight poke in the ribs provoke animation? But the baby didn't need a poke in the ribs. It didn't need any other sort of resuscitation. Not that baby. The self-dependent, courageous, perfectly competent, and winning little rascal resuscitated itself. Instantly, too, and positively, and apparently without the least effort in the world. Moreover, and with remarkable directness, it demanded what it wanted, and got it. And having been nourished to its satisfaction from a young master bartender's silver-mounted bottle, which John Fairmeadow then secretly slipped into his pocket, and having yawned in a fashion so tremendous that Mrs. Bartender herself could never hope to equal that infinite expression of boredom, and having smiled, and having wriggled, and having giggled, and cooed, and actually attempted to get its great toe in its mouth without extraneous assistance of any sort whatsoever, even without the slightest suggestion that such a thing would be an amazingly engaging trick in a baby of its age and degree, it burst into a gurgle of glee, so wondrously genuine and infectious that poor, bored Mrs. Bartender herself was quite unable to resist it. And promptly, and publicly, and finally committed herself to the assertion that the baby was a deer, wherever it came from. John Fairmeadow snatched it from the table, was about to make off with it. Mrs. Bartender opposed. My dear Mr. Fairmeadow, said she, that child will simply catch its death of cold. Well, there was something handy, however, something of silk and fawn skin, with its enveloping the baby. John Fairmeadow swung in a roar with it to the bar and held it aloft, that all-seething wickedness, pure symbol of the blessed Christmas festival. And there was a sensation, of course, a sensation beginning in vociferous ejaculations, but presently falling to a buzz of conjecture. There were questions to follow, to which John Fairmeadow answered that he had found the baby. That the baby was nobody's baby, that the baby was his baby by right of finders keepers, and that the baby was everybody's baby, and that the baby should presently become somebody's much-loved baby. That he'd vouch for. The baby, now resting content in John Fairmeadow's arms, was diffidently approached and examined. Gingerbread Jenkins poked a finger at it and said, in a voice of the most inimical. We're looking it up. Inimical. Tending to obstruct or harm. Well, that was a waste of all of our time. I'd like to personally apologize for that here on this Christmas episode. Description. Get out without disturbing the baby's serene equanimity in the slightest. Young Billy Lush, charging his soft, boyish voice with all the horrifying intent he could muster, threatened to catch the baby, as though bent upon devouring it on the spot. But the baby only chuckled with delight. Yeah, and Billy, the beast, incautiously approached a finger near the baby's stout abdomen, and the baby, with a perfectly fearless glance into the very depths of the beast's frowsy beard, clutched the finger and smiled like an angel. Long Butcher long attempted to tweak the baby's nose, but after an effort, it was a ridiculous failure, practiced so clumsily on the object so small, and the only effect was to cause the baby to achieve a tremendous wriggle and a loud scream of laughter. Yeah, and these experiments were variously repeated, but all with the same cherubic result. Oh, the baby conducted itself with admirable self-possession and courage, as though indeed it had been used every hour of its life to the company of riotous lumberjacks in town. The inevitable happened, of course. Billy the Beast, whose pocket was smoking with his wages, proposed the baby's health. And there was an uproarious rush to the bar. Just a minute, boys, said John Fairmeadow, drawled. It was an awkward moment, but the Jacks were by this time used to being bidden by this man, who was a man, and the rush was withheld, halted. Just a minute, boys, John Fairmeadow repeated, for your minister. The baby was then held aloft in John Fairmeadow's big, kind, sensitive hands, and from his safe perch softly smiled upon the crowd of flushed and bearded faces all round about. Boys, John Fairmeadow drawled significantly, this is the only sort of church we have in these woods. Well, there was a laughing, stir, and a shuffling, but presently a tolerant silence fell, in obedience to the custom John Fairmeadow had established. And caps came off, pipes were smothered. A little way from the bar, please, the big preacher suggested. Pale Peter nodded to Charlie, the infidel, and the clink of glasses ceased, the bottles were left in peace, and the hands of the bartender rested. Now, boys, said John Fairmeadow, letting the foundling fall softly into his arms, I'm not going to preach to you tonight, although God knows you need it. I'm just going to pray for the baby. Dear Father of us willful children, veil, he began, at once lifting a placid, believing face above the smiling child in his arms. We ask thy guardianship of this child, and us that no perfect counsel for him, nor any help whatsoever, that he may surely apprehend. And thine acceptable wisdom, thou settest thy little ones in a world where they presently only thou canst teach them. Teach thou, then, this little one, thou alone knowest the right path for little boys' inquiring feet, and lead this little boy. Oh, thou alone art helping save an adventuring lad. Help then this lad. Oh, thou alone art all-perceiving, burp and persuasive. Alone art thou truth-teller to be a bewildered youth, a good example in this wondering sight. Be then a good example, and tell her the truth to this youth. Thou art alone in the fashioning ways of thine own burp world, a maker of men. Make then of this little child a man. Well, we ask no easy path for him. no unmanly way, no indulgent tempering in the woods. We pay for the no riches, and for no great deeds of his doing, for no ease at all, nor any satisfaction. We ask of thee in his behalf, good manhood. Lead him where true men must go. Lead him where they learn all their life. Lead him where they level down and build again. Lead him where the righteous strength their hands may lift him. Lead him where the anger may strike. Lead him where their fears might fall. Lead him where his heart may find pure desire. Oh, Almighty God, lover of children, Father of us all alike, make of this child, in this measure of his service, and in the stature of his soul. It's supposed to be stature, but there's an R in there. A man. Amen. Amen indeed, everyone says. My God, let's take a break. This story's insane. I gotta brush off whatever the hell we just read. It's weird. For the second time now, I've read a story that's basically just grandma porn. They just love small babies. They just think all babies do is just sit there and coo and be cute all the time. And it's just weird grandma porn. And I'm grossed out. This is the second story now. I want to go down the basement. I want to go down the basement, just play my guitar for a while. And if you want me, you can find me down there. How the hell does this remote area in the woods have so many free babies? Oh, there you are. You came down. I had to just take a break. I can't handle this story. But since you're down here, as I'm practicing my guitar, as you can tell, I'm getting better. Yeah? I mean, I play the same song over and over for hours down here. Let me tell you about a new upcoming book from Penguin Random House. This one's called Country Music Broke My Brain. It's a behind-the-scenes microphone peek at Nashville's famous and fabulous stars by Jerry House, forward by Reba McEntire. Cool. You want to hear about it? Sure. Nashville is filled with stars and lovers and writers and dreamers. Nashville's also teeming with lunatics and grifters and dipwads. I say dipwads and moochers. Jerry House fits easily into that last half of those categories. Someone would probably have to be brain damaged or really damn talented to try to entertain professional entertainers over a decades-long radio show in Music City, USA. Fortunately, House is little of both. Host of the nationally syndicated top-rating morning show, Jerry House and the Foundation, for more than 25 years, he has won virtually every broadcasting award there is, including a place in the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Jerry also spent that time deep inside the songwriting and recording world of Nashville. In Country Music Broke My Brain, Jerry tells his stories from the other side of the microphone. He reveals never aired, never before published conversations with country music's biggest names, Johnny Cash, Brad Paisley, and Reba McEntire, who also, coincidentally, not related at all to this story, did the forward for this book, to name a few, and leaves you with his own crazy antics that will either have you laughing or shaking your head in disbelief. With exclusive celebrity stories, humorous trivia and anecdotes, and broadcasting wisdom, this book is a treat for country music fans or for anyone who just wants a good laugh. Want to hear some praise? Sure. I cannot think of another single person with as much talent and imagination as Jerry possesses. When we get the chance to go out and have dinner together, I can verify that his table manners are impeccable. Barbara Mandrell. Why is everyone bragging about how they know him personally? Hey, Dolly Parton's got a little thing here. There was never a time Jerry House wasn't in my house. She's bragging that she knows him. Or in my car when he's on the radio. Oh, okay. And then I was in Nashville and I'd listen just so I could steal his stuff. Seriously. He is such a funny, talented, good human being. I can't wait to read his book, and I bet you can't either. Oh, so she's not bragging. I like Dolly Parton. I got a soft spot for her. She's just a nice person. You got one from Reba McEntire, Martina McBride, Kit Brooks, Clay Hunnett, Brian Phillips, James DeMarcus, who cares? Because I'm not into country music. So that's Country Music Broke My Brain, behind the microphone peek at Nashville's famous and fabulous stars by Jerry House, put the forward by Reba. It's paperback for $29. You can get it on January 9th. of this year. You can get it from Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and most of the people that listen to country music will most likely probably try to get this book at a discount, probably like in February, maybe March. It'll be half off at Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we go back upstairs and finish reading whatever the hell this story is. Why don't you get self-settled? I'm really feeling uneasy from reading this story. It's supposed to be a cute Christmas story. And you figure, this time of Charles Dickens was probably alive when this was written, so I'm sure it's going to be the kind of same warm, fuzzy, weird old... Nope, just a lot of free babies being thrown around. And nobody seems to really care about them. Okay, well, the last story is Christmas Eve at Swamp's End. As for poor little Patty Batch, all this while she sat alone, a doleful heart, in the shack at the edge of the big black woods, quite unaware of the momentous advent of a Christmas baby at Swamp's End. Oh, the Christmas wind was still high, still shaking the cabin, still rattling the door, still howling like a wild beast in the night, still roaring in the red stove. The snow was falling again, and a dry dust of snow. He's going to do this thing where he spends 5 pages just describing everything. A dry dust of snow which veiled the wandering stairs. Oh, it was no longer a jolly, rollicking Christmas wind. The gale now, it seemed, has become terribly inimical to the lonely child. Wild, vaunting, merciless, terrible with cold. Patty Batch, disconsolately, sighed more often than a tender heart could bear to sanction in a child, and found swift visions in the glowing coals. Oh, though no enlivening tableau, but dear, brave little human one. Oh, she presently ejaculated, "Shoot it anyhow," and began to cheer up at once. Oh, she was comfortably toasting her shins in a placid delusion of stormy, mild-wide privacy, her mother's old-fashioned long black skirt drawn up from her dainty toes, of which course the imminent John Fairmeadow was never permitted to be aware, when all at once the clamoring above the old winds howled. Oh, there was a tremendous knocking at the door, a knocking so loud, so commanding, so prolonged, that Patty Batch jumped like a far... I had pizza earlier. Nope. Still in my mouth? Yeah, it is. Like a fawn, an alarm is just going to shoot at some point while I'm reading, just hit my book. And stood for a moment. With palpitating heart and a mighty inclination to fly to the bedroom and lock herself in. Presently, however, she mustered courage to call, "Come in a submission tone, whereupon the door was immediately flung wide, and big John Fairmeadow, with a wild, dusty blast of the gale, strode in with a gigantic basket and slammed the door behind him, leaving the shivering, tenacious shadow, which had secretly followed from Swamp's End, to keep cold vigil outside. I thought the vigil was Patty Batch, or the shadow was Patty Batch. Who's the tenacious shadow? Just his own What am I reading? Well, hello there, Patty Batch, John Fairmeadow roared. Merry Christmas. Patty Batch stared. Hello, I say, John Fairmeadow cried again. Merry Christmas, ye rascal. Patty Batch, gulping in her delight, quite incapable of uttering a word because of it, flew into the kitchen, and instead of the bedroom, and returned with a broom, with which, while the shadow peeked in at the window, she brushed and scraped and slapped John Fairmeadow so vigorously that John Fairmeadow scampered into a corner and stood at bay. Look out there, Polly Pry, he shouted in rage. Don't you dare look in my basket. Patty Batch had been doing nothing of the sort. Well, don't you as much as squint at my basket, John Fairmeadow growled. Patty Batch instantly did, of course, and her eyes wide and sparkling, too. Oh, it's really something more than a squint. Keep your eyes off that basket, Miss Pry, Johnny Fairmeadow commanded again. All right, he complained, emerging from his refuge and throwing his mackinaw and cap on the floor. Anybody would think there was something in that basket for you. I'm not doing the lisp. There, if Patty Batch gasped in ecstasy, is... John Fairmeadow scornfully mocked. Huh. Patty Batch caught John Fairmeadow by two lapels of his coat, and she stood on tiptoe. And she wouldn't let John Fairmeadow turn his head away, as if John Fairmeadow cared to evade those round, glowing eyes. And she looked into his gray eyes with a bewitching conglomeration of hope, amusement, curiosity, adorning childish affection. And thereth, too, she chuckled, her lisp getting the better of her. Yeth, I'm doing the lisp. Thereth, I know you, Mr. Fairmeadow. I'm just not doing the lisp. John Fairmeadow ridiculously failed to smother a chuckle in a growl. Doth it bite? Patty Batch inquired maliciously, feigning a terrible fright. Nonsense, John Fairmeadow declared. It wasn't a tooth in its head, he added, with one eye closed and palms lifted. But aha, just you wait and see. Well, Patty Batch drawled. I suppose it's turkey. It's certainly not something to eat, she declared. Oh, good enough to eat, I bet you. This is so weird. John Fairmeadow agreed, in the air having concealed the veritable big basket, the sweetest morsel in all the world. Is it a chicken? Nonsense, said John Fairmeadow. It's a far more delicious than a chicken. This is so weird. Hi there, Paul Pry, he roared, and just in time, keep your hands off. Is it anything for the house? No, indeed. The house is for it. Patty Batch scowled perplexity. Backyard, too, John Fairmeadow added. Oh, and don't you forget, this whole place, all the world, belongs to just what's in that basket. I'm sure, poor Patty Batch mused, scratching her curls in bewilderment. I can't guess what it would be. Both were now staring at the basket. And at that very moment, the blanket covering stirred. It's a dog, Patty Batch exclaimed. Dog? Outraged John Fairmeadow roared. Nothing of the sort. No, ma'am. Patty Batch claps her hands. It is, too, she cried. I saw it move. No, it's not. It's a kitten, then. It's not a kitten. Thereupon, while the shadow, who the fuck is the shadow, by whom John Fairmeadow had been dogged that night, now peered with acute attention through the break in the frost of the window pane. Thereupon, without any warning, save a second slight movement of the blanket, a sound, and not by any means a growl. The thing was certainly not a dog. A sound proceeded from the depths of the basket. Patty Batch jumped away. Well, well, cried John Fairmeadow. Now, what's the row? Row indeed. Patty Batch has gone white, and she swayed a little, and shivered too, and clenched her little hands to restrain her amazing comment. Oh, she moaned at last, far short of breath. Tell me quick, is it John Fairmeadow threw back the blanket in the most dramatic fashion, and there, wrapped in the neglected fawn skin cloak, all dimpled and smiling, lay, in all caps, the baby. By George, screamed Patty Batch. It is a baby. Your baby, John Fairmeadow whispered. God's Christmas gift to you. Well, is it a boy or a girl? Because apparently that makes all the difference. Patty Batch, adorable young mother, reverently approached and bending with parted lips, eyes shining, and hands laid upon her trembling heart, for the first time gazed content upon the little face. She lifted then, and with what awe and tenderness, the tiny mortal from the warm basket, and pressed it with knowing arms against her warmer, softer young breast. My baby, she crooned, her lips close to its ear. My little baby, my own little baby. And that's the end of the story. Apparently it doesn't matter what sex it is. Why don't we, go down to the smoking room. I've got alcohol down there. Why don't we just go down there and try to wash ourselves clean of whatever the hell we just read? Oh, thank God, there you are. I'm ready to call it a night. I'm exhausted. 2 weird baby stories in a row. I decorated my house for Christmas for this. I got oh, damn it, I forgot about my wife putting the bird. So apparently, I looked this up. This is apparently a selection of stories from a book called The Measure of a Man, A Tale of the Big Woods. So I guess that's the reason why all these bizarre names are just supposed to make sense to us. Apparently the author decided to reprint some of these like little Christmas related parts of this longer book. Whatever. Doesn't make any sense to anyone that's not reading the rest of A Tale of the Big Woods. But what do we learn? In this world, I don't know if it's based on any kind of truth of the times, that you can be in a remote woods where everyone's logging and whatever, and there's a woman just selling babies. And it was so confusing in the beginning with all the long descriptions of like the environment and the homes and the way the snow's acting and all that kind of stuff, that by the time we got to Patty Batch, then she goes to buy a baby from some woman who's just got a lot of extra babies, and she's real crabby about it because she doesn't want to let them go, or I don't know. They didn't really give a whole lot of depth to whatever's going on to the woman selling babies. She's going to give her one, but it's a boy, and she's like, oh, I really wanted a girl. And so then she's like, I'm not going to do it. And then woman gets all mad, snatches the baby away. And so then she goes back. This ghost or shadow or whatever, I thought was Patty Batch, because Patty Batch like took her little clothes that she'd been working on and like put them in the bar and hoping that somebody would slap it on a baby. I think it's like a Christmas miracle, but like nobody cared. Burp. And then she's not around. She goes home. I thought maybe she was the shadow following the preacher into the bar, but apparently this is part of a larger story of Tale of the Big Woods, this shadow that we're just not supposed to know about. And so she goes home, and then the preacher gives a big speech that's real, real long, and just kind of throws this baby around. Look, everyone, look at the baby. I got a baby. And then finally goes, I know who to take it to. I'm going to take it to Patty Batch, this like incredibly gorgeous woman, according to the pages upon pages of descriptions of her nose, that we found out that he goes over to her with her lisp and then says, here, baby for you. And she holds it up and goes, my baby, my baby. Apparently it's a sexless baby, or it's just implied that you're supposed to know it's a female baby. I don't know. The idea of babies being passed around like a young couple getting their first home. No, I like that one there. Oh, we can afford it. Good day to us. It's just like, I got a baby. I got a baby. I get it. People who are lonely that always wanted a baby can't have a baby, and boy, I wish I could have a baby. But I don't think people think of babies as just small little piles of cuteness anymore. Like they must have back then. It's weird. Again, like I keep saying over and over again, grandma porn. Just like, oh God, what a perfect little creature. What a little blessing. So this was weird and gross. I guess I'm glad I experienced it because it makes me tougher inside. It makes my feelings for the world around me dulled, so I can handle any horrible thing that comes before me. Thanks to reading stories like this. Well, with that, the next episode, I'll probably be back from Germany, but at least I'll have a cuckoo clock, which I can make go off like an actual real one. And then maybe I'll replace my grandfather clock sound effect in this podcast with a cuckoo clock sound effect. And I'll go, my Black Forest cuckoo clock is telling me to shut up, and it's time to go. It'll be a lot of fun. Well, with that, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com, which just points you to my link tree. Everything's on the link tree. Just go to the link tree if you want to see where I am. And of course, link tree has the dumbest URL in the world. linktr.ee/nuzzlehouse. It's the dumbest thing. If you go to nuzzlehouse.com, it's just going to reroute you over there after giving you some weird error about it not being secure. I hate it. I hate the internet. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just staying the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdling or a dork. Now, back to business. Can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.